Hey everybody, welcome back. Got quite a few updates on various things that we were fixing after our last drive. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we're getting on. So I'd like to give a shout out. We actually went and gave a presentation on the car, even though the car wasn't there. We went to Boulder Prep High School, so that was a lot of fun. So I really want to thank Max Potma for inviting us out, and Lily, their headmaster, for having us there. So great bunch of kids. We had an awesome time, lots of good questions. We talked about physics and lasers and also the car. So one of our issues with the new oil pan is that the nice thing about the Batwing is that it has a really low clearance, or high clearance, I guess you would call it, because it only comes down to about here. But the new pan came down and was like almost to here. So that would have given us maybe an inch and a half, 2 inches of clearance from the ground, which would be unacceptable. So I had to do a couple of things. I actually had to cut off a little bit of the oil pan, and I'll show you that in a second. And then also had to shorten the oil pickup just by the same amount. So here's our oil pan. You can see where I cut out this much of it. So it actually also had a pretty steep rake to it, and I think that's for draining the oil. So I still kept a rake to it, but I just didn't keep it that steep, and then was able to cut an inch and a half out of the oil pan. I lose less than a quart of oil, or liter of oil, so it's not really that big a deal. And then I also welded these bungs in. Those are going to be basically above the oil line when we put it in. I've got water in the pan because I was checking for leaks. So anyway, it's turned out okay. So this is one of the main things that we were trying to do, which is change our oil pan. So we were trying to change it out from this Batwing design. And the nice thing about the Batwing design is it's low profile, but it also makes it hard to get to various parts of the engine when you're working on it. So I wanted to do something nice and simple. So we got a simple oil pan. It was a little too long, as I showed. And so we cut out about an inch and a half. That's going to reduce capacity just a little bit, but it's not that big a deal. But the most important thing is this one is much more suited for having a high drain for the turbos. So the Batwing design would not allow that as easily as something like this. So we went ahead and did all the welding as I showed you, and then got it back into the car. So the brake bracket broke and bent. I had made these out of aluminum, so they were not meant to be permanent, and this is why. So basically what I did was I got some 1/4-inch steel and I remade them. This is 1/4-inch aluminum, so they were a perfect fit. I was able to finish them nicely so that they look really good. They don't have all those janky edges and whatnot in them. So we'll go take a look at how that turned out. We also fixed our parking brake. So we've got this all nicely done up. And as I showed you, one of the broken brackets, we've put, I don't know if I can get a good picture of it in here, but we've actually got steel brackets in here now. So those will be much, much better in the long run. The big problem is our steering and braking system. So I went ahead and moved our bias valve, the front rear bias valve. I moved it over here so that I had more space in between the clutch and brake master cylinder. And as you can see, I can now sneak a steering shaft down there, and we're starting to try to build a steering system that will work off of there. And I'm trying to use as few universal joints as I possibly can, but if I'm going to go with this shaft type setup, it's going to be nearly impossible. So I'm looking at like some double joints and things of that nature. And so I'll figure it out. But we're close. We're getting close to being able to not have to do the chain system in here. So that's kind of the updates. It's been quite a bit of work. Modifying the oil pan was quite a bit of work. And then also having to get it so that it's leak free. I'm not the best aluminum welder in the world, but I'm getting better. So it took me 4 or so times to be able to figure out where all the leaks were. And the nice thing is if you use water, which has relatively low viscosity compared to oil, then you really can prevent any trouble. Like if you're just trying to put oil in there, it'll take a while to seep through, whereas the water comes out instantaneously. Other things you can do is put a little bit of food coloring in the water just to see where it's coming from. I didn't have to do that, but that's just a little tip in case you have to do it yourselves. Anyway, thanks again. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time.